1, 2, 3, 4.
This is Michael Urbano, a Bay Area-based drummer whose bio is of Hall of Fame status. He's a self-taught dude who got his first break with popular 80s band Bourgeois Tag. For several years, he found himself touring the world, shooting MTV videos, and playing the late-night shows like Carson, as he was developing his specific style. Shortly after Bourgeois Tag split, he was invited into the touring band of Todd Rundgren, who had been producing the band. Michael thought Todd actually hated his playing during the recordings, but that turned out not to be the case. Shortly after Rundgren, Michael started playing with John Hiatt as one of Hiatt's Nashville queens. Although this impressive start to a drumming career would have been enough for most, Michael might be best known for being the drummer for pop hitmakers Smashmouth. But that's not all. He also recorded or toured with artists such as Third Eye Blind, Cracker, Sheryl Crow, Camper Van Beethoven, Paul Westerberg, Red House Painters, Fisher Spooner, Black Lab, and Death Ray, among others. In 2007, he joined the band for Italian rock superstar Luciano Ligabue, aka Liga. Playing behind a full orchestra, he toured and sold out European stadiums for several years. Just recently, he left the band and headed back to the States to seek new inspiration in another direction. What could this new inspiration be? How about an audition for Lindsey Buckingham? And yes, Michael got the gig. I happened to catch him while he was unboxing his new electronic drum kit, which Lindsey suggested he used for the upcoming tour, before the world shut down, of course. Let's check in with Michael. I think I'm actually have to cut that out because it's private information. Again, I'm an idiot. Hey, thanks for taking the time. This week is really cool. I spend most of my time these days editing because I'm really aggressive once I obsess over something. And learning a 3-hour set list or something like that. Every drummer has their own way of doing that. But since this little show has gotten momentum, the interviews are stacking up, and I'm spending most of my time editing. And I just put up the DJ Bone Break one yesterday, but Kenny Aronoff and Simon from Bad Company, and tomorrow morning is Everett from English Beat. So I'm so stoked that you're able to spend some time, because these are just drummers who influenced me in some way, that I've stolen from you, stolen from Martin Chambers. Chris Vance and stuff like that.
I'm sincere when I say that. It's an overused word, honored, but I really am honored to be on the list with those guys.
Yeah.
Some of those guys you mentioned are the same for me. I've stolen from them. They're huge influences. That's something I can really relate to. That's what when I'm drumming. My thing is that when I was young, I learned by playing to records, and I just chose my favorite 45s in those days. And I would just have these two speakers sitting behind me, and I just sit on my drums in my bedroom, and I just play and play and play and play and play, along to the record. And
to wear it out.
To this day, I'm still sort of, drawing from those people who taught me how to play drums, in that way. It always comes to mind. It's a sort of maybe a respect for what came before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's funny. I was talking to my wife last night about, because every day is an adventure. I'm lucky to walk. I used to love to run and I love to drum. I'm very simple. Those are two things that I just love in life. And I'm not able to really do well. I can teach and drum and I can gig and stuff like that, but I'm not where I was and I'm trying to get there. But yeah, just finding those things in life that are inspiring and like looking back on those times where I'm memorizing skips in the second verse of Call Me on a 45 single.
Uh-huh.
I'm learning off of vinyl also.
Uh-huh.
Those are good times, you know. It's a lot of time alone. It's a lot of time obsessing and talking to these heroes. It's almost like a ceremony. I'm going down the line. I'm like paying my respects and paying my honors and thank you for getting to me. Thank you for providing me to get to where I was in my career, you know. So it's like I'm able to just say, you know, thank you before too much time has passed, you know, and especially people like Martin Chambers. I'm actually offering like, hey, if you ever put out a book, I'd love to, free of charge. I'd love to help you with, in case you forget any chronology, I've got it. I know.
Let me tell you about your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome, man.
He's kind of taken back by some of the details, but I try not to be such an Uber fan. Then I started talking drums, you know, bring me back to
Yeah.
yeah. The shuffle versus straight stuff. Because I have a little school here called Loud House, very young people. But some of those examples I bring up, you know, you can play Smells Like Teen Spirit straight, or you can play it as a shuffle. Here we go.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
So last week we were talking on the phone, just at the top. I want to congratulate you. I'm really excited on your new gig. You were unboxing.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to share a little, not too much detail, but like, it's a big deal to me and to you.
It's a real big deal to me. I've had, you know, just a succession of these gigs throughout my life, and you know, when it's time for one of them to end, in whatever way that it is that happens, you know, often I'll find myself in this period of life where, you know, I remind myself that, you know, I love music. I'm doing this because I love music and I love drumming, but I really love drumming to songs, you know, and I just try to have faith that, you know, like what is supposed to happen is going to happen. And for me, just to try to do the footwork and I keep myself, you know, in the zone of being a musician, and then something eventually arises, you know, is what the pattern has been. And so I got a phone call from a friend who I've done a lot of session work in Los Angeles over the years, this bass player, Bob Glob. He's a fantastic bass player and has quite a history. And I have a real admiration for this guy. And he called me and said, hey man, are you into Lindsey Buckingham? I mean, and I was just like, are you kidding me? You know, and a resounding yes. And so he put my name on the list of people to audition for this gig. And I went down there and I ended up getting the gig. So I'm going to be the drummer for Lindsey. We had a nationwide tour planned. Yeah. And then, you know, coronavirus came and shut everything down. So at the end of the audition, I mean, I'll just tell you, one of the things that happened in the audition is that the guy was like totally fit. You know, he's 70 years old, totally thin, fit, jumping up and down, singing beautifully, singing high, playing guitar like the way he plays. He's incredible, incredible musician. He's playing, and I'm sitting there, I'm playing Go Your Own Way with him, you know, and you know, I'm freaking out just that I'm playing that awesome beat that Mick Fleetwood, you know, came up with. So I'm playing that, and I'm playing the beat, you know, and then he turns around to do the solo. And, you know, there's a lot of guys, people that they'll play their songs, and they've been playing their song for a long time, so they feel the need to reinterpret their songs, you know. And, I mean, I respect that, I understand that, but I also don't like it. You know, I prefer when I hear the melody that I know as to be the song. So the guy starts playing the solo, and he just plays the solo that's on the record. And he's just down. He's just doing that thing that used to freak me out, that kind of like one note thing, that kind of almost like the guitar is a drum, you know? He starts playing it. And so I start doing these fills, like we were talking earlier about like drummers that have influenced or whatever. Mick Fleetwood is a big influence on me. I always love how he plays a fill in the middle of a phrase instead of at the end, or, you know, to like finish a phrase, he'll just sort of put it in a unique place, and that's always been something that I really like. It sounds almost like lyrical in a way or something. I don't know. And so I kind of just sort of started channeling that and playing that way. And Lindsey turned around and looked at me, and he walked right up to me, and the guy's like, a foot away from me playing that solo. And I just met him like 20 minutes earlier. Yeah. And I'm just like, I'm playing, I can't believe this moment. I'm thinking to myself, if I don't get this gig, I got this. I had this.
Yeah, moment, I'm good.
Exactly. Grateful for this, man. And elated to like have this moment in my own life of like me feeling like I'm 17 years old, in my car as a kid, listening to that song and cranking it up and driving a little bit faster, and just, we finished the song, and he just looks at me and goes, if you want the gig, you're in. And I'm just like, the guy, there was no like, wait till the manager calls you, or
yeah,
he just said
we'll
that.
Let you know.
Yeah, and so man, I turned 60 years old in March. I've been making a living since I was 16 years old with my drums, and still like to have a moment like that in my life, to where like this guy could just blow me out of the water this way. Incredible. So grateful for that, And then a couple of minutes later, he looks at me and goes, so one thing though, I hope you don't mind that, we use electronic drums in the band. Are you cool with it? And I'm just thinking like, wow, really? And I said, yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, exactly. There's no way. I don't care who you are. And so I start looking into electronic drums, and of course, it's 2020, technology being what it is. I discover that they're incredible, and I've been a programmer. I used to program beats on SP1200, EMU SP1200, or MPC 3000. Those are the machines that I still use. They're out of date, but that's what I'm into,
Yeah.
And I used to make a lot of hip hop beats with people over the years, and I got really into programming. I really love it. So I have this, knowledge and understanding of my own way of like, understanding how to put samples together and make beats and whatnot. And so basically this is just a bunch of samples that I can play live, and start looking into it. And the Roland TD50 is an incredible thing. And it's also really cool because you have like the sounds that are in there that have like a huge amount of editing possibilities. So then you can also sample and put samples inside and layer them on top. So you could sort of get like a really chunky, nice, good, solid thump. And then you could put a kind of a looser, more, with more overtones, a sample to wrap around that. And you can create some pretty amazing things. And then on the very next song, if I want to sound like an 808 on the very next song, I can do that. Or I could sound like really huge, like gated 80s stuff, or like his 80s material, or go to the really tight 70s sound. And to be able to do that live, it's actually kind of amazing. So,
well, would he know that you were just using factory sounds, or is that something that you dove right into right away? Like, I need something that I can load acoustic samples into, and then he can control the volume.
Yeah, well, it's that he's been using these. He's been using this TD50 for a while, or he's been using Roland drums for a while, and so past drummers that have worked with him, they've been at it, and they've been sort of refining their sounds the way they like. So I'm about to get a thumb drive with his current sounds.
Okay.
And the last guy he had was this guy, Jimmy Paxton. He's a great drummer. He's playing with the Dixie Chicks now. And so Jimmy's going to send me that, or his tech guy or whatever is going to send me that thumb drive. I'll pop it into the TD50, load it, and I'll basically have the ground zero where to start, and I've got a set list, and I'm just going to start working on the set list, with the sounds that they've got that they're used to. And then, I'll start messing with it. And I've done session work for years, and I'm really into tone. So, like on Secondhand News, that song, that Fleetwood Mac song, in the first verse and the intro, it's a really tight, and then on the second on the bam, 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 right. It goes to this other high pitched snare. Like they either had a second snare or they overdubbed something. I don't know how they did it, but also it's just kind of sort of distorted. You know, I mean, Lindsey has created some of the, you know, most awesome sounding records, you know, in my opinion, over the years. And so I'm gonna have the opportunity now to kind of like take those things and sort of try to re-emulate them live, you know, with his.
It's funny. I just came across a Neil Peart. When I rarely see Neil Peart doing a drum clinic, but I came across this thing during the Power Windows tour. It was like outdoors, and he was explaining the electric side of his kit. And he was saying he was working with his engineer and that it just wasn't, some of the sounds weren't working out for him. So he actually started using his own voice and like saying words over like ta or ooh or something with his own voice. And he would layer that in with a factory sound to make something original, you know, and then he played Big Money or whatever. It's like, oh, that's what that is. That's so weird. Cause
that's fantastic.
Little hybrid.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome. And I can't wait till, you know, the world changes so you can dive back into this live.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
I was talking also like, you know, I already knew who you were as a drummer and in most of the things that you've done. But then during the Out of the Vein tour, I had this one-man band called Priss, and that's how I met Tony. And he wanted to start a side project. We called it Tidy Whitey. And we had big plans and stuff like that. We did record a record, but we were basically two guys, and we put a band around us. And so that's how I ran into that camp. And, you know, and we're still friends, and, you know, he'll send me tunes or whatever. But then the XEB thing came together a couple years ago, and they hired me to do some Northwest dates. And I brought up that funny story. You know, I had to learn the first two records, and they didn't want to rehearse. So I had to show up at soundcheck, and like we did just the first song, and they're like, okay, we're good. And then we did the whole 2-hour show or whatever. But Tony did text me while I was driving to the next show, you know, and then can you make whatever song more Urbano? I was like, yeah.
You're like, who?
Yeah, sure. I was like, and you know, you were saying like, well, what does that mean? But I think to me it means like, because I'm more of a pusher. I'm more of a more aggressive, just louder in general, you know. And so it just means, to me, it meant like be smoother, think more about the pocket, think more about the groove of the song. You know, don't be so excited. And then like you're really sneaky, chopsy, you know, especially on that first record. You know, there's a lot of memorable licks on that first record that are super impressive, you know, especially to pull off in a recording studio. And
on the Third Eye Blind.
Yeah, the debut.
Yeah.
What, if we don't mind, what was the I know the song "I Want You" was like more or less a drum machine, I guess. But were there any songs that you didn't play on that record?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of songs I didn't play on that record. So I played on like half of them, maybe, or probably a little bit less than half. So the songs that I'm on, just so we can get that, is I'm on "Losing a Whole Year," "How's It Gonna Be," "Motorcycle Drive-By," and "Narcolepsy." Yeah.
So a song like Narcolepsy, that's not a conventional single bass drum kit groove, you know. It's a very original thing, but I totally get it, you know. And to keep that kind of a groove up at that pace for that duration of the song is impressive, and I think a lot of young drummers should listen to that. You know, especially, you know, it doesn't matter if you're on a click or not. It's like the groove is like so sweet and so fast for a single kick drum. And then "Losing a Whole Year," of course, is like, you know, your eighth note, 16th on the kick and eighth note on the hat. I mean, that's like, that's a legendary thing right there.
That's just, you know, like a moment of, you know, bowing to John Bonham and again, just stealing something from somebody that has inspired me, like, you know, so much, and just managing to put it in. And Eric Valentine, you know, allowed that to be in the song. He was just like, yeah, that's actually okay. You know, we'll use that. And the one thing I'll say about that Third Eye Blind record that I loved is that it's all basically pretty live and unedited. It's all the drums are going to tape. There's not. I don't think there's much computer involved in that record.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you are hearing is pretty much what's played. I don't think that it's one of those edited records. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's how that went. And another thing I'll say also about Narcolepsy, the song Narcolepsy, for the few people that know that particular song, is that the way that was done is that Stephan stood in front of me. It was just he and I in the studio. Eric Valentine was in the control room, and Stephan just stood in front of me with an electric guitar, and he said, well, here's how my song goes. That song's got all those tempo changes, and it's got all this stuff. So he played me the song, and we kind of messed around with it, and he's like, okay, let's try it. So he just sat there. He had a 57. He's singing had an electric guitar. He's like 10 feet in front of me, and just the two of us did that together. I kind of watched his hands. He watched my hands. I watched his hands. We kind of, we kind of did it together. And that's how that came out, and it was really cool to do that song, really not quite knowing how it goes, and also with all the tempo changes and everything, just sort of be on the seat of your pants kind of thing.
Yeah. Because at the end, live at the end, Kevin's waiting for me with his big guitar swing. Yeah. He's waiting for me, I was like, well, we've never rehearsed before, but here we go.
Yeah. Who's going to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Motorcycle Drive-By, did you just start? Did you go, okay, well, this is where the fast part comes in. Can you click it off? Or did you have to wait to that whole intro before you on the kit while you're waiting to record?
Man, I can't remember. I can't remember how we did it.
It's another tempo change, and then like the song just explodes, and you're 8 on the floor.
Yeah, a lot of that is not done to a click, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
And it's a lot of us just kind of looking at each other, and we kind of know how the song goes. And Eric would just kind of let us do several takes until he got what he liked. That's how I remember it going down. By the way, I think really all those songs, those 3 songs were meant to be, they were demos. It's how they got the record deal. And it was like, am I going to be in the band or am I not going to be in the band? And ultimately, Stephan and I decided that I wouldn't be in the band. It was just, I had other things I wanted to do, and it was a really hard decision. It was a really hard decision. He's a really intense guy, and he and I, we were young, and we would look at each other in kind of odd ways, often. But I have a lot of love and respect for that guy. After all these years, I think he really did, do something good. I mean, that guy fucking willed that thing to happen, man. Like he was sitting around San Francisco, and he just, he was a bit of an outsider in that scene around then, and he just did not give up until he put together a really good band, until he found a really good, producer, a good manager, and he just kept going. And you can say what you want about him, but in the end, his vision and perseverance, made it happen.
Yeah, well, even at those shows that I was playing, they did pay their respects from the stage. Awesome. It wasn't all bitter or whatever. And I know those 3 guys love you.
Oh, right on. Yeah, I love them too. I mean, they're excellent musicians. They're really great musicians, and they're also innovative. Like Kevin, all of his weird alternate tunings and his sort of like funky guitar playing, but it's not like funk. But he's got such a great sense of rhythm, Then Orion is just like, I mean, dude, his bass part on How's It Gonna Be?
Yeah.
That, if you just want to know how great that dude is, just listen to that song, key into the bass. The dude is fantastic, man.
Yeah, and they had all these little stops in there, that I didn't know about in the verses. Oh, okay, I'll get that the next time around.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things like you listen to a song 1,000 times, it seems so dumb, and you try to learn it, you're like, oh.
Yeah,
actually got some stuff in there. Yeah,
my wife's a singer-songwriter, guitar player, drummer, jiu-jitsu champion also, but she was at those shows, and I've known Tony since 2002 or whatever, there's been so many bass players, guitar players who've been coming in and out of that band. But when she saw XEB at these particular shows, she was like, yeah, I get it. Like that guitar player, it's a sound that it's unmistakable. People can play the songs and try to get close to the amp sound or whatever, but like Kevin has a sound that is completely original.
I mean, like with any musician, it's ultimately in their hands. You can give the exact same guitar to another guitar
snare drum.
They play snare drum, whatever. It's going to sound different,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Eric, I consider myself a little bit of an engineer, producer guy or whatever. And Eric Valentine's always been at the top of the mountain for me. So I was, what was that?
Keep climbing.
Oh yeah. Okay. I was just wondering, like, what's like one or two little things about his production technique while you're recording with him that you remember, or what makes him different?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things, because he's a pretty particular person in terms of like his skill level is so high in about 80 million areas. I mean, the guy could tear a Studer tape deck apart and clean it and fix it and put it back together in a day, and then he can play drums like 10 times better than any drummer. And it's kind of endless with that guy. And he also has he's able to understand, I think, like the essence of what he feels like needs to happen, and also to comprehend and imagine in his mind, all the 15,000 moves that are going to happen afterwards. He's already built the house before he grabs one brick. Then him being a great drummer, the guy can sit there and go, okay, what I want you to do is, on the verse, I want you to play with this part of the stick on this part of the hat. I want you to open on 2 and 4 just about this much, okay? I want you to hit the snare right in the middle and try to keep it kind of dead. And I want to do like that, okay? On the chorus, if you could move your stick and hit with the shank of it and open the hi-hat, not all the way, but like make straight eighth notes without too many accents, and hit the snare a little bit off to the side so that it rings more. So we're going to open up the sound a little bit. Can you do that? Yeah, I can do that. So I do that. And then I go in the control room and it just sounds incredible, and, because he's got his electronics tweaked, but he's also got me tweaked, into the way of like doing what it is that he's looking for. And, some people might think that's micromanaging or whatever, but for me, I really appreciate that a person has that much vision and knowledge about like how it can be, For me, it was always a pleasure to work with that guy. He's a brilliant person and inspiring,
I mean, I'll hear songs on the radio that I don't even care about that genre, like I don't care about that band. I've heard the band before. I don't care about that band, but what's drawing me to the song all of a sudden? Like, why is this band cool all of a sudden? Look in the credits, like, oh yeah, Valentine.
There it is.
There it is. That makes sense. This other band, I don't care about that band. I'm not going to go see a show. It's like, oh yeah, look at that guy. That's why I'm listening to it 10 times an hour. I don't know what it is. It's like magnetic. This guy's a genius.
He's a special one, man.
I'm going to go down. You've had like a very successful, concentrated, a drummer's dream kind of career. So I'm going to, just for like the audience, I'm just going to scroll through them real fast, not bore anyone. And I have a question at the end. So you've played with Third Eye Blind. You've played with Smashmouth, Bourgeois Tag, Sheryl Crow, John Hiatt, Cake, Cracker, Camper Van Beethoven. Can you help me with the pronunciation? Luciano Ligabue?
Ligabue.
Ligabue,
yeah. And if
Italian artist, gigantic over there.
If you're Italian, you go like, "Oh my God!" Now finally someone that matters. I mean, he's like Bruce Springsteen over there. He's huge.
I noticed that doing a little research.
Yeah. Wow.
Of course, like if you look you up anywhere, it says Bourgeois Tag was your first gig or whatever. I'm sure you've been in your first gigs before that. But how did you get into that from just playing around in the area? What was your connection to that first band?
What was my connection in going into
Bourgeois Tag?
Bourgeois Tag. How did I wind up in that band?
Yeah.
I grew up in Sacramento, and I played in these. I was just a funk drummer in the 70s. I grew up in the 70s, and I was obsessed with funk. And, you know, when we're talking about smooth or whatever it is, it's just maybe what you're also mean is that I tend to play behind the beat, you know, like a funk or R&B drummers. Like those were my earliest heroes, and that was my thing. That's what I was into. And Commodores, Kool and the Gang, Earth, Wind and Fire, Ohio Players. Those are Barcades. Those are the bands that I was obsessed with, and the drummers I was obsessed with. Al Green, Al Jackson Jr. And so these were my heroes, and I'm still trying to figure out how they did what they did, but I'm working on it, you know. And so in those days, that's where I was at. I played in a cover band, and we were basically a funk band, and we were just playing. We played 5 sets a night, 6 nights a week, and I did that for many years with this band. So I'm just in there playing these songs, and there were these 2 guys that are in the crowd, and I recognized them. They were from this other band, a local band called Uncle Rainbow. That was just this incredible band. I used to stand in front of this band before I was old enough to get into bars. There were a couple places I could sneak into, and I would stand there and I'd look at them and I go, my band has all the same instruments, you know, how come we don't sound anything like this? You know, it's like, there's no way I'll ever be able to do this or whatever. They were astounding, you know, pretty chops oriented, you know, kind of a little bit muso, but they really had a lot of soul too. So anyway, I recognized these 2 guys from that band, and I'm wondering like, what are they doing here? It's like, and then a week later they're back, and then a 3rd time they were back, and then that night they came up to me and they said the classic thing that people say, like, hey, you know, we know you're in a band, we don't really want to mess with your thing, but you know, we're going to do something. Are you interested? And I was totally interested. And what had happened with them is that, you know, they were in this sort of like Steely Dan / Weather Report kind of 70s thing, you know, that they were doing, but they had gone to New York to visit one of the guy's sisters. She was an artist in Brooklyn. This is like 81, 80. And Talking Heads are just blowing up in New York, you know, and New Wave and all punk rock and all the thing that's going on in New York City. And they just got their minds blown. The same thing happened to me right about the same time. I'd gone to the Buhay Gardens in San Francisco, and I saw UXA and the Humans, I think it was what I saw. And I was just like, I was in Pearl Jam. I had like really long hair, you know, and I just like cut all my hair off the next day. And so this thing was happening, you know, in the world, this punk rock new wave emergence of like this sort of new minimalism and new way of looking at music in this sort of angular thing. And, you know, if you'd like been studying music a lot, it was a weird thing because, you know, you were also not supposed to be too like good or whatever it was that people thought. Like you couldn't be too like slick or whatever. But a band like Talking Heads, like I totally related to it, man. Like Chris Franz, you know, his really, and then it turns out he said his hero was Al Jackson Jr. So same hero, you know. And, you know, and when they're playing "Take Me to the River," you know, he's just, and they did such a great cover of that, you know. And it's like, and then David Byrne's awesome lyrics, and you know, Tina Weymouth, her bass lines and stuff, and David's way of playing guitar, and it was just like, yeah, these guys are so funky, but it's in a new way to be funky, and I'm really curious about that. And right about the same time, those guys walked in and they said, "Are you into like?" We could tell you're into funk, but are you into the same? I go, you mean like Talking Heads? And they're like, exactly like Talking Heads. I'm like, yes. And they said, well, we want you to audition for us. And so they gave me this cassette tape, and it was like at a level way, way higher than I thought that I could achieve. And I was thinking to myself, I hope these guys never find out I'm not good enough to play in their band. I'm not going to be the one to tell them, you know. And I just practiced and practiced and practiced, knew all the song, knew every fill, knew all the arrangements of their own material. They were great writers. And I went to the rehearsal, and they were sitting there. Brett, keyboard player's got a Prophet 5, Larry's got his bass, and then I had a TR-808. It's the, you know, the old 808 Roland drum machine. Yeah, there's like,
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're just jamming to this thing. And I'm walking in there and I'm totally nervous. And I'm taking my old Rogers drum set and I'm like setting it up. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, and I set it up and they just like look at me and they're like, play. And so I start to play along to a drum machine. I think they wanted to see if I could play and now stay with the drum machine. It was the beginning of that. The beginning of like, can you play metronomically? Can you play like to a click? Can you play to a drum machine?
Did they just blast it out of the PA or something?
Yeah, they just had it playing really loud in the room. And so I just started playing to that and the other two guys, and we jammed for like half an hour and they're like, you're in. I'm like, but I know all your songs. Like, dude, doesn't matter. You're in, you know, like that's what we're looking for, you know? And so that's how I got in that band. Wow. Yeah. Very, very short story, I know.
No, it's okay. So, I mean, and then like one clip I saw you was like Carson. So what's the time frame in between you're in the band and then you're on Carson?
3 years.
Oh, okay. So you were in there for a little while.
Yeah. I mean, the thing was about that band that I'll tell you is that I played in other bands before and played a lot for a really long time and had like, you know, a little bit of success in the top 40, whatever, go like get drunk and dance world, yeah. You know, that I was in those days. And then I got in that band and we practiced for a month. We practiced every night and I learned all their songs. They picked really cool, obscure covers. And within 2 weeks, there was a line around the block to see us. And that's when I knew like, it's okay to be good, but you got to be great. And if you're not great, really nothing's going to happen. And that's what a light bulb went off in my head for it. They showed me that because they were fucking great, man. They could sing so well. They really worked hard. They really had it together. They were original. They were soaking in it, you know? And our band was successful like that. Like I was making money in that band and making a living. And
so that was the first time where you discovered that you were a pro or that this was going to be your career?
I mean, I was a pro before that. I was a pro since I was 17, man. I was playing 5 sets a night, 6 nights a week. And I was going to high school. You know, my parents said, you know, you keep your grades up, you can do this. And I was making money, you know, and then when I was 18, I moved out of the house and I was making money playing drums and I paid my rent with that. And that's a pro, you know? And I was like, this is what I'm going to do with my life, you know, to the horror of my parents, you know. I was just like, that was my announcement. That was my intention. I told them, if I don't get something going on by the time I'm 24, I'll go to college, you know. And thank God I did not have to go to college. You know?
I begrudgingly went to college kicking and screaming, and I'd still consider it a waste of time. Sorry, everyone.
Well, yeah, on the other hand, I have other musician friends who are college educated, and I actually have some wishes, some regrets that I went to college because they know things I don't know, and they behave in ways that I don't behave. They have a certain level of discipline that I never developed, you know, in certain areas of life. So, you know, you go where you go. It happens how it happens.
You've been a pro from a very young age. You said 16, 17. Did you do the same thing? Because I as a freshman in high school, I was playing with 25-year-olds playing 21 and up clubs. I remember the first show was opening for Stan Ridgway in Huntington Beach.
How great!
But I remember like just reading magazines at the grocery store next door because I wasn't allowed in the club until showtime. And then after showtime, you immediately have to get out. So I'm sure you did the same thing.
Dude, during the breaks, I had to go in this room and I would do my homework actually, you know? Yeah.
Your laundry list of all these rock stars you've played with, are there any examples of who wanted you to play exactly the script and who was like trusted you can be, there's more freedom in your playing? I know you know the song and you can loosen it up and add your own style.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I got to say, like, you know, those guys in Bourgeois Tag, they didn't really tell me what to play. They just said, you know, play whatever. I mean, there was some stuff on the demo that this other guy, Aaron Smith, he's a really great drummer, lives in Nashville. And he played with the Temptations when he was young. And he had done a couple of things that I thought were really cool. And so because I loved him, I just did that, you know. but that band, they let me play what I wanted. They had a song that kind of sounded like this Gang of Four song, and I just ripped off, Hugo's drum beat, blah, 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 just, like, it's, I just thought that was a cool beat, and I said, how about this? And they're like, like, do that, that's good, so those guys were that way. And then the next gig I got after that band broke up is the producer of our second album is Todd Rundgren. Are you familiar with Todd Rundgren?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Todd Rundgren produced our second album. It's called Yo-Yo, and I always thought Todd hated the way I played. There was a lot of things that he was really rough on me when we were making the record. And one time he had this control room up high in his place in Woodstock, and I'm down there playing, and I'm playing for Todd. And I mean, Todd is like an idol to me, and I'm just so freaked out that I'm even around the guy. And he comes running down the stairs after like 3 days. He's like, okay, so you're like a really professional, totally organized guy. I can tell, you really got everything figured out. And I'm like, what? Wait, you play the same fucking thing every take. It's like I could just use the first take. Like, why are we even doing more? Like, inspire yourself. Like, loosen up, man. Like, do something. Like be in the moment. Like, he's yelling at me. I'm like, and so he goes, why don't you hey, hold on a second. He grabbed all these like weird metal things around his studio, and he started taping them all around my drums. And he had just done that Skylarking FCC record.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Incredible record, right? So I'm like totally, and I love Todd, man. And he's just been yelling at me and practically crying, and I'm like, and he puts all these metal things. Says, just start fucking banging on that shit and make it sound like a fucking Swiss clock or something. I mean, do something not normal, I'm like, okay. He goes up the stairs, so I start.
Do something new wave.
And he's like, yeah, be new wave. So I started banging on this thing. He's like, yeah. There you go. And so I did that. It's on the record. It's on the song called Waiting for the Worm to Turn. And it's just got this kind of weird, quirky beat. And I'm just, doing all this, disjointed shit. And then our band, we've toured for that record. We got through, then one of the singers decided to leave. Brent Bourgeois, he wanted to start his own thing. And so our band broke up. And it was time that we did, I thought, and I'm like, what am I going to do? And my phone rings, and it's Todd. And he's like, hey, man, so I heard what happened. And so you want to go on tour? And I'm like, what? I thought you hated me. He's like, no, man, no, you're great. That's just me producing. And then I joined his band, and we did a record called Nearly Human. And on that album, he said, play whatever you want. If I don't like it, I'll tell you. And we did everything live, and often there would be like 17, 18 people playing all at the same time. There'd be like a string section and percussion. There'd be like 5 background singers, 3 keyboard players, 2 guitar players. It was incredible, man. And we did everything live, including his vocal. It's the whole album is entirely live. And
what year was that?
Pardon me?
What year was that?
That's
early 80s.
I think 84.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Nearly Human, it's called.
Trying to connect with the early MTV days. He had a bunch of videos around that time.
Yeah, and there's a song called For the Want of a Nail that has Bobby Womack singing on it.
Oh, wow.
I mean, dude. So, I mean, I'm like this kid, and I'm around these guys, and I'm just like, okay. I mean, I don't know. I have to admit, I still feel that way when I get around somebody that I've admired for a long time. It's just like, this ain't work, man. I can't wait to practice for this person and make it right for them, Yeah. Anyway, but Todd was that guy. He was like, play whatever you want. If I don't like it, I'll tell you, And I hope to be around people like that as much as possible, because I do like to play what I want to play. But I got to say, with that Ligabue gig, the Italian thing. Yeah. That producer is this guy, Corrado Rustici. He's a great producer, but he's the type of person who has every little part figured out. And he would meticulously program these beats, and he wanted me to, and there would be often unique rhythms, and he wanted me to play pretty much exactly those parts. Yeah. And then he would say, put your own stamp on it, do what you want, but this is basically it. But after working with Corrado for a little bit, I could feel like how far he would want me to go and how far he wouldn't want me to go away from his trip. And, you know, he's producing, and I gotta make his vision come alive. You know, that's the job. And fortunately, his parts are always really interesting. So for me, it was really fun. But that's an example of, I mean, basically, man, you go into the room with who you're working with that day, and you assess how it is. Like, who are you serving? Who are you being of service to? And what is it that they want from you, you know? Yeah. And hopefully it's going to be a fulfilling experience for you as a musician. And whether that be like you're going to make everything up or you're going to play everything exactly the way that is, you got to figure that out. Otherwise, the phone won't ring again. You won't come back, you know? And so that's just the way it is. Like, you just kind of figure out from gig to gig, like, what is it that they're looking for? I think with this Lindsey gig, I'm going to start out with like where they left off. I'm going to make him really comfortable, you know? I mean, he has been one of the greatest arrangers in history. Why do I need to recreate what this guy's done? It's like, those are classic songs. I'm going to learn those parts. I'm going to be respectful to that stuff, you know, like I would be if I was playing with Pretenders. I wouldn't recreate Martin's parts. They're brilliant, right? You know, like, why would you do that, you know? Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the script stuff, like when I auditioned for Offspring years back, you know, I probably flew down 4 times, you know. First is for the manager, then it's for this guy, then it's with the band, then it's with the band again, then it's with the band. But it was always play the script, do not deviate from it, you know. And I didn't get a lot of interaction from any of the band members. You know, you walk in, you do your 5 songs, and then you wait and see or whatever. Yeah. And that, you know, I got down to the final, whatever, heartbreaking 2 drummers or whatever. And the guy who got is a sweetheart. So, and he's an awesome drummer. But from that, I made a relationship with their management. And then a couple of years later, I'm in the room with Smashing Pumpkins. And at the time, you know, it's all it's gigantic, you know, and if you don't get it, it's going to be a super bummer. But at the time, I wasn't grateful that, oh my God, I'm in this room. You know, how many drummers are in the world, you know? And it's because you build relationships. The Offspring guy saw what I could do, and we stayed in touch, and he got me in that room. And that was the opposite. That was like, of course, I have to learn their whole catalog backwards and forwards. And then I talked to the Smashing Pumpkins manager, and she's like, oh, just have fun. Oh, okay. Just
right. But then again, you know, really, what does Billy want? You know, you got to figure it out. You got to look at his eyes and try to figure it out.
And he wasn't even on guitar during the jam. He like went over to keys, and
oh wow, that's awesome.
It was just very avant-garde. Like, I don't know what's going on here. You know.
When was that?
That was 2009. Yeah.
Is that when they were doing this sort of more electronic thing?
Yeah. Well, they recorded the record, you know, shortly after that. He actually picked like this 18-year-old kid from Beaverton, Oregon, who was working in a McDonald's at the time. So, anyway, but like, I mean, there's still all different kinds of experiences. But what I teach my kids here, the ones who are really serious about being in a band, if there's ever a music industry again, is like, don't be a jerk, you know, not just having basic chops, but have a good attitude. You know, can you be in a van for 3 months with the band, you know, and not piss everyone off? You know, can you have a good attitude? You know, that goes a long way.
Yeah.
Making connections, building relationships.
Yeah.
Are you self-taught, or did you take lessons back in the day?
I'm basically self-taught. I also am a little. I play open-handed, so that's a little bit of a, you know, whatever. It's that thing. Play hat and ride with my left hand, snare with my right hand, kick drum with my right foot, and I did that because I'm left-handed. When I eat and when I write, when I throw a baseball, throw it with my right hand. Yeah. And I sat down a kid, and I played right-handed for a few years, and nobody was going like this, and nobody was like saying, dude, you know, come back tomorrow. But then I accidentally kind of played on my kind of first audition with someone with my left hand, and they said, you're in. And I was like, oh, weird. I got nervous, and I guess that's how I'm supposed to play, you know? But yeah, I'm basically self-taught. There was one guy who I took lessons from and his lessons were more philosophical than they were sticking, but they were, to this day, I think about that, and extremely helpful. And I think he probably made it possible for me to, I don't know, be a better drummer.
So were all your auditions primarily by ear, or did you have to read or use charts?
I've created this this way of writing charts that people who know me call them hieroglyphics.
Chicken scratch, yeah.
Yeah, I just have my way of doing it. They're usually, I write these, I have these sort of symbols for like 2-bar phrases, and it's something that I can actually look at from across the room, and I can see the shape, and I know how the song goes from looking at it from pretty far away. And often when I'm on tour, if they don't mind, I'll have a book on stage, and I just kind of glance at the chart a little bit, depending on how the set list. Like when the Italian guy I was playing with, we were playing like 80,000 people a night, these giant, stadium shows, and there's a lot of precision involved, always playing to a click. And he's been doing it for a long time, and he had a huge song list, so he would change the songs all the time. And so with all that pressure, and I wanted everything to be perfect, I just always had my book next to me, and I'd kind of like go, yeah, I'm currently having an anxiety attack and freaking out in front of 80,000 people. I think I'm just going to look at that page for like 10 seconds, just to refamiliarize myself. How about you? Do you read?
Well, I do the chicken scratch thing. Like, when Loaded has its downtime, I play for this Tower of Power cover band called Dr. Funk, and those shows go like 3 hours long, and then Ben Smith, the drummer of Heart, he's the main guy, so I do it when he doesn't. And he sent me over this huge tablet of notes, charts. But I went and actually saw them live at a festival, and I recorded the whole thing, and I took it home, and then I wrote it out my own way.
Yeah, that's how I do it.
Yeah. Listen a lot, and because sometimes I'll use phrases like, when it gets to second verse, do the fill from the Smashmouth, blah, blah, blah. When it gets to the second chorus of whatever Tower Power song, do that thing where Cake, in the Cake song, blah blah, blah. And I'll put it in parentheses or something, like little signals, little signs.
Dude, if you're playing a Tower Power song, just do what Garibaldi did. You're good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, wow. That's what I was telling you about, the 70s funk. That's another thing on the list. And in Sacramento, they were huge, Tower Power, and they actually recorded their live album in Sacramento, live and in living color. And I must have seen that band 10 times. I mean,
yeah.
Oh my God.
Crazy.
Wow.
Man. It's made me. The horn section in this band, they're all A-listers. They're older guys.
Yeah.
And it makes me more dynamic. It makes me play how I don't normally play, because when I'm out on the Taste of Chaos tour, the singer's wrapping this mic cord around his neck and everything. It's like a competition, what drummer can hit harder, who can play faster. And it just really helps me to be more of a drummer, so I can get those kind of gigs also. So
are you playing like What Is Hip?
Yeah, everything.
You're playing Squib Cakes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My own take. And they have their own take on it, it might not last as long, or you always got to pay attention to whoever's soloing might last longer than the record. Or there's a trumpet player, Alexi, up here, is just a total shredder. He's down at Jazz Alley like every weekend, and people come out to see this guy shred.
So do you live in Seattle?
Out in the mountains, Issaquah Mountain, the Squawk Mountain, it's called.
Okay. All right. So how long does it take to get into the city?
About 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Right.
Not too bad.
Awesome.
So
I want to say about Tower Power, Orion Salazar from Third Eye Blind, the bass player, the guy we were talking about earlier, he and I were in a cover band called Curveball in the 90s, and we were Tower Power. Like, we played so many Tower Power songs, and I mean, David Garibaldi is another hero, and wow, man. And I've sat very close to David Garibaldi and watched him play, and he's fucking genius.
Yeah, it's just
unbelievable.
Whole different world.
A true original.
All you can do is just pay tribute and put your own spin on it.
Yeah. One thing I got to say about David Garibaldi is that he had the ability to do that kind of paradiddle,
Yeah.
you know, all that stuff, right? The constant, that sort of thing, which he's sort of known for. But if you like listening to like their second record, there's like this song called "So Very Hard to Go." Do you guys play that, Matt?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's like just a straight up Stax tune, you know, where it's just, you know, and he's playing that simple, perfect feel and the perfect tone. You know, just so classy, man. You know, and that's when I love a musician that can play like that elegantly, you know, and then they can also play like a wild man, you know, like. Then I have more respect for. I relate to them more, I guess. You know, it's sort of like Picasso could do all this crazy shit, but he actually could also paint a photograph. You know, so I don't know. Anyway, that's.
I think Soul Vaccination is my favorite one to play.
Oh, dude,
out of this.
We could geek out on this for a long time. Well, are you gonna do it?
I mean, I'm still working on my nerve ankles, but I'm just
awesome. Kudos.
So a little while back, once I knew, you know, Arian was going to hook us up, I saw in one of your posts that you were celebrating a certain amount of years on your sobriety, and I'm actually really curious about that. So maybe we can combine. Through your successful drumming career and all the touring that you've done, have you ever had to put up with some physical ailments that you've had to come back from, any kind of injuries that you've had to keep an eye on? How do you keep yourself healthy now? You have a new routine, a new life routine to stay healthy so you can continue drumming, and then a little bit about your sobriety story.
All right, physical things along the way. Used to have like a really severe problem in my levator scapula where I could barely turn my head, and just excruciating pain down the left side of my neck and back, to where I was always like, I mean, for years I was kind of like this. And really what it was is like, you know, like, once again, the geeking out on other people and being inspired by other people. Steve Jordan used to have his cymbals really high on the Letterman show, and I always thought it looked so awesome. He'd be playing. And also, you know, some engineers would really love when they were like really into like separating the sounds, you know, like your cymbals are really far away from your drums. They would love that. You know, keep the mics really far away from the cymbal mics, you know, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I was just playing like this, you know, like this all the time. And I was just fucking destroying my joints, and I was just constantly shredding my muscles and my tendons and just overextending stuff. And I finally got with a chiropractor. He's like, well, show me how you, like, he went to one of my shows, I think, and he's just like, dude, you can't do that. Like, your body, like, you know, let me save you some money and some pain. Like, you know, like, just get this thing ergonomically set up so that you're not just beating the hell out of your joints. And so I changed the way I set up, and I put everything lower. And I try to keep my elbows pretty close to my sides now. It doesn't look quite as like, you know, rock and roll, but it still sounds good. I can play really loud if I want. You know, I've got pretty good wrist and forearm and finger thing, and I can snap the stick and I go, pop, you know, and I can really hit hard if I want to. Although I try not to do that too much anymore. For me, I've learned it doesn't sound as good. And so that was a big change there, the sort of changing.
More compact.
Changing how my kit was. And I look at my body and how I'm sitting. And whenever I have particular new pains, I start thinking about, like, how are you sitting? What are you, like, repetitively doing? Take stock of what you're doing with your body, you know, and be conscious of what it is you're doing when you play, and see if you can make some slight adjustments just in your posture, how you're breathing, and how you have things set up, and whether or not you're like overtaxing certain areas of your body, you know. And then sadly, I've got to announce that, you know, I being left-handed, I would always have my ride cymbal to the left of my hi-hat, and it would always kind of be outside of the stereo field. And often the drummers' ride cymbal is like, you know, just to the right of the rack tom or to the right of the second tom, and it's still in the stereo field of the overhead mics. but I would have this, my ride, my hi-hat, you know, here, and then the ride over there. And so I would be playing like this, and, you know, it was okay for my body. It actually felt really comfortable, really easy. But like sound engineers would say to me, like, dude, I got to put a separate mic on your ride because it's not in the overheads. And so often they did. And then some people would complain, like, it's messing with the phasing. You know, I got too many mics on stage, you know, because you. So I decided about 5 years ago to move my ride cymbal just to the right of my hi-hat. So in between my rack tom and my hi-hat and my ride cymbal up there. So I was playing like this, and I was extending my arm. And so when you would see me play, instead of me having my elbow down on the side and playing like this, for about 5 years I've been playing like this. I had my arm like this, and then, you know, and then, you know, like on the chorus and bashing, and then playing a little lighter, but, you know, extending my arm. And so also I'm an old man now, and
you have some tendonitis in there.
And I just basically created some arthritis in my shoulder, and so I'm going to have chronic pain now in my left shoulder. And I had some bursitis, and so I went and got a steroid shot. I had a doctor talk to me, and she said, you know, once again, like, how do you set up? And she's like, you know, yeah, you can't do it. And I kind of knew it, but I was going, this is working, it's still working, you know, and every session I would do oh yeah, it's awesome. It's like, right, I don't have to have hardly any and the overheads, and it's totally great mix. And so anyway, my ride cymbal is back to where it originally was. And then for my recovery, there's just exercises that I've been given, and I had a steroid shot. And basically really what I've done is I've rested. Thank God the COVID thing happened.
How do you do that?
I haven't been playing.
Yeah.
What I've been doing is I've been like working on a studio. I've been building a studio and collecting gear and wiring up a studio and getting it together. And I just haven't played for several months. I just let everything go. But normally what I do is I do like some exercises before every show. I do yoga, I stretch.
Good.
I make sure that I'm ready. I ice myself if I have to keep swelling down. Maybe a little bit.
Jerry from King's X is the only guy who said he doesn't do any warming up. I don't do nothing. I roll out of bed playing drums.
Right on.
I was like, even in cold weather.
Yeah.
Well, you've got the magic juice.
Yeah, I figured out that if I lie on the ground and do yoga for 20 minutes, I'm also like calmer so I'm not on stage like, you know, I'm on stage. Right. I'm that way anyway. You can't tell. And so I need to calm down, you know? And so I just like, try to calm down. And so when I go on stage and everything's like, you know, that I'm like, okay, I know that this first song is at 117 BPM. And I know how I'm going to start. I know about how much pressure I'm going to apply to the drums. And I'm going to try to calm these motherfuckers down who are all going to be playing ahead of the beat.
Right.
And everyone's going to be rushing and everyone's going to be freaking out. And because it takes about 4 or 5 songs to like finally settle into it. So I try to get myself there. Like I do about, you know, maybe 150 jumping jacks before I go on stage, get my heart rate up so I can just kind of calm down and have my heart rate thing already. Yeah. Anyway, so I do that.
Touring with Loaded, I used to run a lot, even pre-show, and I'd run a lot post-show. I'd run pre-show to calm myself down for my meter, and I'd run post-show to calm myself down.
Yeah.
Because I was always pissed and overly excited when we finished. But it was always like, where is he? It was always a panic. Like, have you seen Burke? Have you seen Burke? Where's he? You know, looking at the watch.
Burke?
It was a routine, but it wasn't a routine that they enjoyed.
Yeah. I was a runner for years.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my knees said no more. So bicycle now.
Yeah, it does. I can never reach the endorphins in any other exercise except for running, but it does take a toll.
I hear you, man. Another thing I'll say is that I've been vegan for a year, and this has been a big thing, big change. I feel so much better from that. My daughter basically taught me how to do it. She, just by example, she was just doing it, and I wanted to be supportive, and so I just sort of ate the way she was eating, And then I just kind of copied it. And then once in a while I'd go out and have some meat again when I'd be out, but then I'd be home. And then I noticed when I was out, I wasn't eating meat or any dairy anymore. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm vegan now. I've been vegan for a year, and
smooth transition.
And it's really been a beneficial thing. And I don't want to be one of those people that's like over the top pushing that, but
yeah,
for me, it's been a great thing. I'm 60 and I want to play until I'm 85, man.
I hear that a lot from drummers who've changed their diet, going vegetarian and vegan, and what a difference it's made. It's just that when you're walking through the neighborhood and you smell that stuff coming off the grill, man, it's like so primal.
Yeah.
But I guess it just takes a little time.
Yeah, it's you know, it's like all the other things that we let go of in life, you know. There's that tunnel you have to go through, and then you come out the other end of the tunnel and you're like, oh, I'm this person. I'm able to, you know, I've let that go, you know.
Yeah.
And you got to suffer for a while until you make it through the tunnel, I guess.
Would you relate that to your sobriety story?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. You know.
How long has it been?
It's been 31 years.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
October.
Wow.
Yeah. Sorry, August 23rd was 31 years. Yeah. And
good for you.
In the 80s, I did a lot of cocaine, drank a lot like everybody else, and extremely normalized back then. Constantly smoking cigarettes, constantly smoking pot. You know, 70s and 80s, and it reached a point where my friends were coming over my house and they're like, dude, you know, you're going to die. And, you know, if you think about like what your friend has to do that day, and, you know, for them to put on the list, go over to and see if you could save Michael Urbano's life from killing himself with drugs and alcohol. That's a very loving thing for someone to do, and probably not their top choice for fun activity, you know. And so the light bulb went off, you know, in my head that, okay, I need to let this go.
Well, thankfully, you didn't have any life-changing experiences because of it that kept you off the drum kit for very long. Because a lot of people in your position, you know, they weren't so lucky to have someone in their life to knock on your door,
right,
and make a difference.
Yeah, or whatever it is it takes. I mean, I can just share a little bit more that there's, you know, my father, you know, his life ended early because of that, and so something like that is in your mind, and you know, it helped me to see the light a little sooner, maybe than some other people. I was still 29 when I stopped, you know, but yeah, I was completely out of control, man. Staying up 3-4 days at a time, you know, disappearing all the time.
Wow.
Really independable, just a fucking out of control. You know, back then, man, it was like, you know, Reagan's going to push the button and the bombs are going to go off, fuck everything. We don't fucking care, you know. And
Cold War kid.
Yeah.
Well, geez, we've covered a lot. One just random thing. How long did you play with Cracker?
Cracker was pretty short-lived, actually. It was, I was playing with a band, the Spent Poets, on a tour. There was some drug abuse issues in that band, but more personality stuff, and you know, it was just kind of a rough thing. You know, I was older than the guys, you know, and always kind of an outsider, and this is a lot of conflict going on, you know.
Yeah.
And we were really a good band, but we just not meant to survive, you know.
Yeah.
And bumped into Cracker on one of the tours, and played with and got asked to join the band without having to audition. They saw me play, and it was just like, basically what happened, man, is that the Spent Poets were playing at the Metro in Chicago, and we're playing, and we blew up on stage. Like, we had been arguing and yelling at each other so much that we were doing it on stage during the show, and I just walked I kind of blew up on stage, lost. I'd only been sober for like maybe 9 months, you know? So I was a pretty edgy guy.
Yeah.
I definitely contributed plenty to that problem, you know? Like most of my problems, I contributed plenty to it. And so it blew up, and I flew home, you know, the next day. It was the end we were on tour with that band Live. It was during their first tour. And so I went home, and I'm like, and the phone rang, man. Like it rang like a day later. And it was this guy, Davey Farragher, a guy who I play with to this day. He plays with Elvis Costello the last 15 years. He's an incredible bass player. He was the bass player in Cracker. He'd been having an argument with the singer, David Lowery, in Cracker, saying, we need a different drummer. We need somebody who plays, you know, a little bit more fiery, a little more aggressive, but also funky. Knows how, like we have a lot of R&B in our band, a lot of funk in our band. We need someone who's like gets like this like punk rock-ish thing, this country thing, but also is funky, you know? And so David finds like, okay, fucking, then you go find him. And then Davey's like, okay, I will. And so then the Spent Poets are playing. We're at this festival, and Davey walks outside of the trailer, and he hears somebody playing drums in the distance, and he's like, huh. And he walks over there, and he's like looking at the stage, and he watches me, and he goes back to the trailer, and goes, I found him. And then David's like, haha, that's funny. No, seriously, he's playing right now if you want to see, or if not this guy, something like this is what I'm talking about. Yeah. And so David comes out, and he looks at me, watches me for a couple of songs, and then he tells Davey, he goes, see if you can get him. And then my band blew up the very next night. I went home. I'm sitting at home. My phone rings, and Davey says, you want to come on tour with Cracker? I'm like, dude, are you fucking kidding me? Oh my God, you know?
Charmed life, dude.
Yeah, I am.
Not without struggle, but someone's watching over you.
I agree. I agree. You know, I mean, dude, I gotta say, man, I've loved music since I can remember, and I just want to do good for music. And I think I hope that's why opportunity keeps coming, because I really just, I don't want to be a rock star. I don't want to be a big, famous, rich guy. I just want to play good music, you know? And I get to keep doing it. I'm still doing it if I am lucky. But Cracker, that lasted about 6 months. But I made probably one of the best records I'll ever make in my life. And I think it's probably the best band I'll ever be in. I mean, it's kind of mean to say that. Everyone's been great, but let's say it's my favorite. You know, this guy, Johnny Hickman, the guitar player, this guy is unbelievable, man. He's like, it's like getting to play with David Gilmour or something. I mean, the guy's so good. And then David Lowery, incredible songwriter. Incredible. Yeah. And so I went and did that album with them. We did it out in Joshua Tree, where this place Pappy and Harriet's is. And we were like, well, we were the first band to be there, man. Like it was really early 90s, and David just found that place. There was no one going out there, hanging out there. He found it. And they kind of
I believe Paul McCartney just played there a couple of years ago.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. I mean, it's like a whole thing now, you know? And so David, being the way he is, he's a total outsider and always finding new avenues, and total DIY guy. He found this place, and we had this amazing producer, Don Smith, who produced all, you got to look up Don Smith, man. Did the Keith Richards solo records, worked with Isaac Hayes at Stax, incredible dude. He worked with Cracker, worked with John Hiatt too. That's how I got in with John Hiatt. And Don produced us, and we were out in the middle of the desert in this like weird little sound stage that we made our own studio. We like drove a control room truck, a remote truck, into this middle of the sound stage, and sat up in a circle, played everything live, and that's what that album is. And a lot of those songs are written right on the spot.
Wow.
Like David's like, here's a new one. It goes like this. So I start playing, like watch his hand. Okay, I guess he wants to play about that tempo. And play. And then, you know, Davey comes in with the bass, and then Johnny comes in with the magic riff. And it was weird. Just like that album just kind of happened. And then we went out and played a few, and we toured for about, I don't know, a couple of months right before we made that record. Like I was in the band for 2 months. Then we made a record. Then we had like a 2-month break. And then we were going to play a couple of shows to get it rolling. And I just got to tell you one thing. We were playing at this place also in Chicago. It's the Amazon. What's the something ballroom? What's that at Roxy Music, Avalon Ballroom.
Okay.
Avalon Ballroom is this place. And so we had just done this song. The very first day I played with Cracker, David starts playing this John, that song Low just like came out of the sky. It's just like was like we were playing that song. I've been playing with these guys for like 20 seconds, and this song just like appeared. And then David like starts singing the words, and then the manager comes in an hour later, and David's like, let's play Jackson, our new song. We played a song. Jackson was like, that's a pretty good song, you know? And so that song just like came out of the sky, man. It was like happened like that. And then the first gig I played with him is at the Avalon, and David never would write a set list. He would never write. He would just turn around and call the songs off. he was, that's how he did it. And I'm sitting there and I'm on the drums and I'm leaning forward and I'm like totally like nervous, and I'm about to play with these guys for the first time. And we just, you know, and there's a curtain, and the curtain opens up, and he turns around and goes, play the new one. And we just like, we play that song, and the whole place is going. And you could tell, like, this song's a fucking hit. This is a hit song. Like this, you could feel it, man. And it was true. It happened.
The harmonies are crazy cool.
Wow, that's Davey. That's Davey on the bass player. He could sing those weird high harmonies.
Yeah, I just love that band is from Redlands. Who's from Redlands? You know,
yeah,
Sammy Hagar from Fontana. Face to Face is like from Victorville, but I've never heard of any band from Redlands before. I take pride in that because I'm an Orange County guy, but I was like, I like these bands that come out of quirky, desert California towns.
Yeah, man. War is from San Bernardino. You know, I mean, one of the greatest bands ever. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, always the coolest stuff doesn't happen in the biggest centers. I think. I mean, sometimes something cool comes out of those places, but generally, you know, I'm not in Seattle. I'm in Issaquah Mountains. So Modest Mouse was our claim to fame from Issaquah. Oh, yeah, sure.
Wow, that's a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah. I drank a cup of tea right before we started, so I did.
Oh man, I really appreciate your time. So the Lindsey schedule is just kind of on hold. You're putting the studio together, and I'm sure you'll get a plan down the line here pretty soon. Yeah. Well, this kit right here, this old Ludwig kit, which I actually played, I toured with Cracker with this kit. I am going to put electronic triggers and put these mesh heads on it. And I'm going to turn these drums into triggers. Oh, okay. So when I play with Lindsey, this is the kit I'm going to play. But it's going to be an electronic kit, but it's going to look like a classic old school kit. And you prefer the mesh rather than the harder rubber surface? Yeah. Well, from my studying, that's the way to go. And there's a place if anyone's ever interested in converting any acoustic drums into electronic drums, there's a place in Indiana called Extreme Drums, and the guy there makes these amazing triggers that are really easy to install into acoustic drums, and you just put the mesh head on. Like you just have to take one lug off, and you put it on, and you just set it the right way there, and you put the mesh head on, and you've got yourself a electronic drum. And the guy's been doing this since like the early 90s, and he's really, really good. So Extreme Drums, the guy's awesome. Okay. About to enter the electronic world, man. Do you have any endorsements right now? You need to do any shout out, anything like that? Well, I mean, I think I'm endorsed by Apollo. by UA. I just got an Apollo X16. I love it. I've got the twin. They're fantastic. Yeah. Man, right. And always, I mean, such a great classic company, and they did such an amazing job at entering the digital world, and yeah, they're incredible. And so I'm working with them, work with UFIP cymbals out of Italia. Yeah. Italy, and really incredible handmade cymbals. And that's really it right now. I'm going to maybe reach out to some people and see if some other people are interested in me. I love Ludwig drums. Rogers and Ludwig are kind of my favorites, you know, and I mostly play vintage drums. Such a history. So yeah. I'd like to reach out to some companies and see if they're interested, but you know, I'm
don't know how if I'm high level enough right these days right now.
Talking about. You want me to do it? You want me to make phone calls?
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that's all there is right now. I got to say that I'm interested in a few companies, and we'll see if I can get stuff going on here. I'm about to kind of reinvent stuff. I've been in Italy for 12 years, and I've been playing this giant stadium rock thing, and it's been like this mega precision 2-click track every song, high pressure thing. And it just came to a point where I just looked around and I was playing these giant shows, and I was like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something else, And so with total like peace and love, I was able to let it go. I'm on good terms with the artist, but it was just time for me to go somewhere else. And so I'm taking this time off, so I regroup. I'm going to do this electronic thing. I'm putting my own studio together. I want to start like doing more producing, and I'm just going to kind of go into a new place. And I'm not quite sure where that's headed, but it's time to do something different.
The next Urbano phase.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're set up for good stuff coming up here in the future. And just talking to you definitely helps me out, takes me out of my self-pity. And you got some really cool stuff to say. And I really respect, all your work and your playing and how you've inspired my playing. So thanks for taking some time out. I really appreciate it.
Hey man, you just turned around and played Soul Sacrifice, so you're doing pretty good. Yeah,
it's all the quick twitch. It's all of the nerves in my ankle and stuff. It's like takes a while. Yeah, that's what's left. I'm about 75%.
Yeah, and so is there a prognosis?
I actually just got new images last week, MRI images, and I'm getting new X-rays next week, and so we're at about a year and a half since the accident. And I don't know, the urban legend is 2 years, you're going to be what you are. So I'm very impatient. So I'm pushing. My wife's like, you need to rest one day. You need to rest. I'm like, walking hills, doing biking, drumming, it's just because of the way I work. I'm not good at rest. That's why I was asking, how do you do that?
Yeah. Age.
Yeah. Well, shout out to our friend, Arian Salazar for, helping us connect.
Yeah. Lots of love for that guy. Mutual admiration society for that dude.
Yeah. Let me know if you need anything in Seattle. Don't hesitate to reach out.
Thanks a lot, man. It's a pleasure talking with you, and thanks for letting me gab so much. I appreciate it.
No problem. I'll talk to you later, and I'll let you know when this is edited. I'll send you a link.
You have a lot of editing you do.
I know.
All right, Bert. See you later.
Yeah.